All right, hello everybody. Let's have a play. Oh gosh, I got the hiccups really bad today, so unfortunately I'm going to be hicking up constantly throughout this video. Also, I'm streaming in the morning, so better set a reminder on my phone because I do have to go to work in about an hour's time, so this is not going to be a long stream. One moment. Start a 50-minute timer. It's me just telling Google what to do.
For 50 minutes, and that's starting now.
Sweet. All right. So what I decided recently is that instead of having a blog API, I want to have a to-do API because I think a getting started app is going to make more sense with a to-do app. For a blog, I probably wouldn't use a lot of Quasar's features. I might use Quasar to build a blog, but I wouldn't use all of its features. So for that reason, I've thought let's do a to-do app because it's going to hit more of the Quasar features and the features will make more sense. So for example, I might not use Vuex if I'm creating a blog, but I'm going to use Vuex if I'm creating a to-do application. And so I know to-dos, like, it's kind of lame because it's so overdone, but I think it makes sense in the context of what we're doing. And yeah, so this is kind of what I've got planned. Rather than making it a boring run-of-the-mill to-do application, I wanted to do... Oh, God, these hiccups are bad. I wanted to do something like this, where we've basically abstract further than most to-do apps do. So you've got a project, lists within that project, and then the to-dos sit within those lists. So we've just got, with a project, we have an extra level of abstraction. And then we'll probably have comments as well, and that'll be a polymorphic relationship. So a comment can, a project can have many comments, a list can have many comments, and a to-do can have many comments, all that kind of thing. So I thought that would be really cool. Man, these hiccups are bad. But you're just going to have to deal with it. Not much I can do about it. Hiccups are involuntary. And I don't want to, like... maybe I should try holding my breath. One sec. You know, funnily enough, this actually works for me sometimes. I used to think it was just like one of those old wives' tales, but holding my breath sometimes works. So I'm going to do that now whilst I set things up. Man, I can't code with while I'm holding my breath. Did that work? I don't know. Maybe it did. Okay. Anywho, what should I work on next? So if we go to api.php, I've got users and I've got comments. We need to have, that's because I basically duplicated this from the blog API that I was working on. That's why there's no to do and there's just users comments. So let's go ahead and create a to do. So we'll say art make model to do, and we'll add the OR flag. Actually, instead of adding the OR flag, let's get a little bit more specific now. Actually, what I'm going to do, I want it to open the right... I've got a hotkey for Google Chrome, and right now it's not opening the correct Google Chrome, so I'm just trying to figure out if I can... That's my live stream. One sec. Sorry about this. Not super fun to watch. I'm trying to get an instance of Google Chrome I can open with my hotkey. All right, that's not going to work. Who cares? It's not that important. All right, so let's jump into the Laravel docs, and I want to figure out exactly what to add here. I might not even need the docs. Let's just say help. And so we've got controller is what I want. I'll just do it in here. I'll also want a factory. I'll also want a migration. I will not want a seeder. I'm just going to use the default seeder and do it directly in there because it's not that complicated of an application. Ugh, these hiccups. Actually, I actually don't want a controller because I'm going to use the Orion controller. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, okay, that's going to be it. So there's only a couple of files that we actually need for this. So let's go ahead again and say art, make, model, to do. And I think you can just say dash FM like that. Will that work? Yeah, it worked. Cool. And that'll make a factory and a model for us. All right, so let's go ahead and go into, sorry, a factory and a migration and a model. So let's jump in here. And a to-do is going to have, what was the relationship here? A to-do is going to belong to a project. So really, I've done things in the wrong area. I should probably start from the top down and go project, list, and then to do so we can set up relationships properly. So let's go ahead and delete that. That's all right. This is all part of the learning experience. FM. I got to remember that. It should be easy to remember. It's like a radio station. To do, whoops. Bit of a rough start to this video, but I think we're getting into a flow now. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that again, but this time instead of a to do, what am I going to make? I'll start with a project. And I think a project is literally just going to have a name. It's kind of an organization tool. So let's come down here and say table string name. And that probably needs to be unique, or at least unique by the person's IP address. So if you remember from the previous videos, every single one of our models also has an IP address. And the name is probably going to have to be unique based on the name and the IP. So let's do this. So what that basically says is the name and the IP address combination needs to be unique, and if it's not, then it's going to error out on a database level. So that's really good. It's exactly what we want. Now let's say art migrate and see how that goes. Looks like that's worked. And let's go ahead and create the model itself. To do project.php. Now we're going to user.php and copy some code here. We want this scopes to request IP model. You might want to watch some of the previous videos in order to figure out what this does. But basically what it's doing is it's using that IP address to scope the person who's making a request to this endpoint. But yeah, I can't re-explain this stuff every video, unfortunately. So I'm just going to have to push on. Yeah, I think that's literally all I have to do. What else have we got in here? We want to set up the relationships as well. So currently a project actually has no relationship. So it's literally that simple. And then we'll jump over to Orion land. So api.php. By the way, anyone who's coming on, feel free to say hi. Projects like so. And then we're going to have a projects controller. So let's go to the users controller, duplicate that, and say projects controller. And now change users here to projects. And down the line, we're going to have generators that'll do a lot of this work for us. So we'll change user there to project in both of those places. And I think that's it. Man, these hiccups are bad. I'm just going to ignore it and move on. So I'm opening Postman now so I can test this. But while that opens, let's come back and think about what else we want to do. So that's that. Now we want to have a list, and a list is going to belong to a project. But I don't think I want to enforce that. I think I want to make it so a list can belong to a project, but it doesn't have to. So how about this? We say art make model, and we'll call this a list. List is reserved by PHP. Okay, so we'll just call it to-do list. That's totally fine. To-do list.php. So we'll jump into there, and we're going to do the exact same thing as we did with project, where instead of extending model, we extend scopes to request IP model. We jump into the migration. Once again, we want to make sure that we have table string, which is equal to an IP. Now, a list belongs to a project, but that is not going to be enforced. So what we'll do is we'll say table foreign, and I think we'll say foreign ID 4, and then we can literally just pass the class right through. And what's it for? It is for a app model project. And I'm not sure if that's going to be nullable by default. So let's run that migration and see if that actually is nullable by default. All right, what do we got here? I've got some permissions not set up correctly here. Let's see if we can just delete that file and run that again. Here we go. Apparently that hasn't been found. App, models, plural. Man, I've made that mistake a few times now. Okay, so now let's say art tinker, and I just want to check if that makes it null by default by saying project create. Not project, sorry, list create. But it has to be to-do list create. All right, so okay, we have to have an IP address. That makes sense. I'm happy with that. IP is equal to something random. Okay, so that is currently not nullable. Oh, wait. What's going on here? IP. If I jump into there, I'm pretty sure I said that everything is not... Oh, okay, IP is guarded. That actually makes sense. I thought that behind the scenes, though, I set this up so that it automatically sets the IP address for me. To-do list. .ip. Okay, so let me just remember how I did this and check if it worked. Yeah, so if we're running in console, if we're not running in console, we set it. If we're running in console, though, okay, so how can I create this then? So the problem is what it's doing is it's checking if we're not running in console. So if this is like a real request, and if it's a real request, then it uses the request's IP address. Otherwise, we should be able to set it manually. So maybe I could also then say if, or maybe we could do this as an else if, and then we'll say model IP. So if we're creating a model and an IP has been supplied, then we'll set that model's IP equal to, no, that's not going to work because it's going to be hidden. So that just means that there isn't an easy way. Okay, so the best way to do this is probably then through a factory. So how was I doing this before? All right, so basically we were using a factory and it would automatically set one up for me. All right, so let's go down that line of thinking. We'll say to-do list factory, and I'm going to copy a bit of that code there, this IP address part. Tinker, and then let's say to-do list, and then we'll say factory, and call create on that. Okay, cool. This is the error we want now. So the project ID cannot be null. However, I want it to be nullable. So let's come back here, and we can simply add on here nullable. And then I'm literally just going to say artdb wipe to wipe the database, and then we'll just migrate again. Sweet. Now let's say art tinker and try and run that command again, and it works. Cool. So now we can have a to-do list. It doesn't have to belong to a project, but it can belong to a project if it wants to, which is what this foreign ID for project part is. Okay, what else are we going to do? I don't think I created a... Well, first of all, the to-do list. Man, it's hard to focus with these hiccups. It's going to be a tough day at work today. How about we have a title for this? The title of the list title, or should we use name there? List, or maybe label. Label works really well with Quasar because that's what they usually call it. You know, you pass through the label of a form, and so maybe we'll use the word label there. I think that'd be good. Oh man. Okay, so I'm happy with that. What else does the list need? Probably nothing else, because once again, it's literally just an organization tool. So now we want to be able to say a project has many lists. So let's go to project.php. So I'm a bit all over the place. Public function list. List or to-do list? No, list is fine. And then return this has many app models to-do list class. And we'll put in there. We don't have to add in the second argument because it will be able to guess that for us. So let's come in here and say a project has many lists. All right, what are we going to return? We'll return that relationship. Okay. Cool. What else have we got? Next we probably let's just check the factory for a to-do list. We want to be able to give that a default name. So let's say label is equal to, and we'll just say, I don't know, not a sentence, probably just a word. So I think I can then say this faker word. And that label will automatically be generated for us. So now let's go to the seeder so we can easily create some test data. And let's come in here and create a project by default. And we'll say has to-do list. No, has list because I called it on project. We just said list, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, lists. So project has lists, and then we'll go ahead and create it. And yeah, I think that's about it. Now, another thing we might want to do is create some sort of ownership to users, but I might just do that on a to-do level. I don't know. I'll think about that in a bit. So let's say artdb wipe, and I want to be able to just say migrate and then add the seed flag afterwards. All right, we got a problem. Projects.name. Okay, so currently the project factory, it looks like that doesn't have a name. Project factory. So let's come in here and do that. And we're also going to have to give it an IP address. Everything needs to have an IP address. So let's say this faker, and I'll just say name there. Oh, what was it again? It was just like, oh no, name. No, name will give us like a person's name. So let's say word or words. Can I say words? And then just say like, yeah, give me 2 words. That probably makes more sense. All right, so let's go back to one of the other factories, and I might actually end up extracting this part here, this collection that basically generates a random IP into its own, I don't know, something, but we might do that later on. All right, so let's run all of this again. So how about we say art db wipe, and when that's done, migrate and then seed. All right, what have we got now? Argument 1. Okay, I think it's got something to do with this here. I think I might have to say $NB is equal to say what the number is. It's a name parameter thing that I don't understand very well. Nope, looks like I was wrong. Let's see what happens if I change this to just words. Run it again, and if that works, then I know that's where the problem is. No, okay, so it must be somewhere else. I can't even see where this is coming from. Create to do. So that migrated successfully. Let's go to the migrations database seeder and start trying to figure out where this is coming from. What if we get rid of has list? Let's see what happens now. All right, so it looks like it's probably sitting within the project is where we're getting the problem. And maybe we have to come in here and say project ID. Let's try that again. Got to be honest, I don't know where this is coming from. Must be of type array, string given. Let's come back to the seeder. Project has list. All right, let's do the classic copy paste of the error. No, that's not a website. I want to Google it. Google. Oh, looks like I've looked this up before. Man, these hiccups. Woo-wee. We need to iterate over the... You're trying to save an array as a singular value. Maybe I've done something weird here in the factory. So let's say project factory. This is giving me an array. So words... Okay, so words returns an array. But by default. So what I want to do here is say as text is equal to true. I think that's the problem. I don't know. Let's try that again. Yeah, man, that's weird. And I'm sure there's a good reason for that. But by default, that gives me an array. So I had to just set that to text. All right, so we can probably start playing around with this API now. Nah, let's run a little bit deeper. So now we've got... Man, I've like gone a bit off the rails in this video. So string IP, I just want to make sure that they've all got an IP address. Yep, list. All right, so the last thing I want to do is have a to-do item. So let's say art make model, and we'll make this to just to do, I think. And now let's run through all of those. So first of all, I'll come into project, I'll copy that, and I'll go to to-do.php. Extends scopes to request IP model. All right, so that's the model done. Next, we've got the factory. So let's go to do factory, but really it doesn't make sense to do that until I've done the to-do migration. So let's say to-do's table, and we'll come down here, and then we can say table string. They all need to have an IP. Table Boolean for whether or not it's complete. And then table label, string, which will be a label. And now a to-do does have to belong to a list. It can't just stand on its own. So let's say table foreign ID 4 app models and to-do list. And this is actually going to be constrained. So we want to enforce this constrained. Cool. I think that's it. So we've got the name of the to-do, whether or not it's complete. Complete or completed? Finish, complete, completed. Yeah, no, I think that's fine. And then it has to belong to a list. So let's go back and wipe the database and seed it again. That's working. Now let's come in here and work on the factory for this. So first of all, once again, we're going to do all that crazy IP stuff where we generate an IP address. I'm doing way too much copy pasting here, which tells me that I'm definitely going to have to extract this IP thing into its own whatever. Complete is going to be a random Boolean. So let's say, in fact, let's change the order here. Let's say label and then complete. So we'll say label is equal to, and I think we'll do what we did before. So this faker, and how did we do this? It was it was words, plural, and then we want to say the number of words is equal to 2. For a to-do item, we might make it more, so like 4, and then as text is equal to true in this case. Cool. So we've got our label. Next, we want to have whether or not it is complete. This faker, and we should just be able to say Boolean, like so. And we can say the percentage, the chance. So how about we do this? Chance of getting true. And I like this idea of putting in the name of the variable as a parameter. and let's say a high chance of getting true, just so that we got something like a bit more exciting to work with. And I'm going to say 80 there. So 80% of chance that that's going to be true. And I believe that is it. We got our label, whether or not it's complete, and then our IP address, and then this will be set for us within our factory. So let's go into our factory. Sorry, our CEDAR. So CEDAR, database CEDAR. So a project has lists, but then we also want to say that the list has to-dos. And I think there was a way that you could do this really easily, where you basically say whenever you're creating a list, make sure you're creating to-dos as well. What am I thinking here? Oh, my brain's just gone off the rails for a second. Okay, we're looking up factories. So database, writing CEDAR. Yeah, let's go to defining factories. And I think directly within there, you can say, for example, user ID, and then just pass through the factory of something. In fact, I think that's what they use in their example. Yeah, here we go. You can literally just send through the factory. How cool is that? Or what if there's I'm not sure that's how I want to do it though. What I'd really want is to have a list and then a random number of items on that list. So you might have, for example, like 8 items on that list. So how about this? We say has, and then we can say here list factory. So we'll say list, to do list. I'm going to import that just so that it doesn't get out of control here. So let's import everything in this file. Project to-do list factory. Let's lay this out a little nicer. And then we can say has many, or we don't even have to say has many. We can just say this list has to-dos. I'm pretty sure I can just do it that way. Yeah, if I have the relationship set up. So let's say to-do list.php. We'll have to say public function to-dos, and then I can say return this has many app models to do, and we can send that through. And I believe here it's just going to automatically guess the right ID for to-do list ID. And then we can come up here and say a to-do list has many to-dos. Cool. All right, so now we can say to-do list factory. It has to-dos. How many to-dos does it have? Let's use that random code that I had before. What was it? Rand, and then you can just send through something. So maybe like rand, I don't know, 2 to 10 to-dos. Or maybe even 1 to 10 to-dos. You know, some of them might just have one item in there. And I think that might be it. So let's try running this again. We're bound to hit some sort of an error. Here we go. Undefined method project to do list. Project.php. Right, so in has, I'm guessing that we'll be able to say it's lists instead of to do lists. Or maybe I should just call this to do list so that it's more indicative of what it actually is. Yeah, I think I will. So let's say here, to do underscore lists. And then that should work. All right, what now? Project to do. I probably have to say has many. Is that a thing? No, no, it's has. Yeah, so let's see how it's done here. Has, and then you send through the thing that it has. Okay, and you can send through here the name of the function. But yeah, what am I doing wrong here? Let's go back to has. Read that error again. Quarter undefined method, project to do list. So it expects it to be to do list like that. Is that the problem? Probably. So yeah, all right. Let's start writing it this way instead of camel case because it looks like that's the Laravel way. The fact that it wanted me to have it in this case tells me that that's the Laravel way of doing things. So let's start permeating that throughout our application. I'll jump out of here and we'll come up here and say app. Maybe not app. Where is it? Oh yeah, it'd be app under my models. Comment. All right, that's fine. That's fine. I want to find more occurrence. Okay, it looks like that was the only occurrence, but I need to remember that in the future, if I need to use two words, use camel case instead of snake case there. All right, cool. So that's really clean. In fact, I might even be able to turn this into a one-liner. Let's see what it looks like, and if I'm still happy with the look of it, we'll keep it. No, I don't like that. That's too busy for my eyes. To-do list factory. In fact, I might bring it back literally to what it was before. Has to-do list factory. And then the to-do list factory has to-dos. I don't know. Yeah, that looks better to me. Cool. All right, so we've got our database seeder, which looks like it's working now. Let's just run that one more time. And now we can say art tinker project first. Let's see if that works. Yep, there we go. We've got our first project. And now let's see if it's got any to-do lists. No. Did I name that plural? No, to-do lists, plural. But that is probably going to ruin our migration now, isn't it? Oh no, it still worked. So let's say art tinker again. And let's see if our project, we'll grab our first project again. Nice. And then we'll say project to-do lists. Cool, that's working. By the way, can we say how many here? Yeah, so how about we set a random number between 1 or even 0 and something like 3. So you might have up to 3 to-do lists. I like to have really good factory data. And if you get really good at writing good factories, which is what I want to do, then everything becomes simpler from there. Yeah, there we go. Now this one's got 2 to-do lists in this case. We can grab our project. We can grab our to-do list. Let's pull off the first item on that to-do list. And then off of that, let's grab a to-do. Okay, we can't do that. So let's jump into to-do list. Oh, of course, it's to-dos, plural. Nice. Okay, we're modeling the data exactly as we like it to. The only thing we have to do now is basically get all of this into Laravel Orion. Actually, no, let's go ahead and create the comment stuff as well. Then we'll start building out the API itself. So I'm going to come back here. And this time, instead of a to-do, we're going to create a comment. And this is going to be a much more complex relationship, but it'll be fun to build. Already exists. Okay, I've already got a comment. Belongs to a user. Yeah, I still haven't thought about how users are going to tie into this. Let's say comments. Let's have a look at the table where we create the comment. Yeah, I'm not sure I'd change anything here. It looks fine to me. Let's start following the pattern of having IP at the top, though. So I'll come back to, we'll go to database migrations and make sure the IP, yeah, I want it to sort of sit there. This is kind of, I see this as like the defaults section. And there we go. And now I believe what I can do on comments is tell it to add morph maps like this. Table, morph. So this, yeah, I can say more. So add the proper columns for a polymorphic table. And this will be a one-to-many. So I can do that on here. I don't need to do it on a pivot. And will it be nullable morphs? No, it's going to, we don't want them to be nullable because it will have to morph to something. A comment can't just sit out in the open on its own. And this is going to be commentable. Cool. I think that's literally all I have to do in order to set up the polymorphic relationship in terms of the database. So let's run this again, wipe the database and seed it. Okay, it looks like that's all working. So now we can push on and build up those relationships. I always forget the names of these. One day I'm going to come up with like a mnemonic device for this. So let's say morph. Yeah, here we go. Morph to relationship. That's querying. Basically, we want to see the one-to-many polymorphic relationships. One-to-many. There it is. All right. So, yep, we've even got comments as an example, which is great. So we'll have commentable ID and commentable type. That's what this is done here. Then let's have a look at the model structure. We can do that on the comment itself. So I might go ahead and do that. Comment.php. Get the parent commentable model. And I don't need the parentheses. I know what's going on there. What else have we got? Next, it's morph many. So that's how we say it. So let's just copy that and basically jam that code into what we've got. So you'll be able to comment on a project, a to-do, or a to-do list. So let's add it in all of these places. In fact, I might even turn this into a trait. So let's say new file, and we'll say commentable trait.php. Or maybe something like is commentable. Yeah, is commentable.php. That's kind of the more Laravelli type way of doing this. So let's say trait here to scaffold that out for us. And then basically we should be able to say comments on it, get all of the models comments. Morph many comment. So let's go ahead and import that. I like to do this inline app models and make your app easier to upgrade, I'm pretty sure, for if you're using something like Laravel Shift. Oh, somebody sent me something on YouTube. Give me a second. I'm just going to quickly read this. And it's completely unrelated to me. All right. So now we should be able to just use the is commentable trait on all of these. So let's come to project, and then we'll come up and say use is commentable. There we go. And I can actually call that directly without importing anything because it's sitting within the same namespace. So let's, whoops, copy that line of code. In fact, I can just click there and say copy, which will make it easier to paste. And I can do this. And I can do this. And now they can all have comments. In fact, let's go ahead and do that in our factory. Not factory, sorry, Cedar. But we will want a comment factory, so we're going to have to build this out first. Once again, we've got the body IP. It looks like I've already started building this in a previous video. We've got a user ID. I'll probably have to do something different there. I don't like the idea of just doing that directly in line. But anywho. And basically, I want to grab a random... Is there a way I could just grab like a random person, or if they don't exist, create them? I wonder if Laravel's thought of that with their factories. This is a great learning experience. I really want to be able to like have stellar factories and get really good at making awesome factories quickly. And it's taking a little bit of work up front, but once this upfront work is done, it's totally worth it. At least that's what I believe. So let's go through the docs and find out how I can do this. User factory. I want to find the point where they do it in the factory itself. Because basically in the factory itself, I want to say, hey, have a look for it. Otherwise, look for one exists, otherwise create one. Well, I'm learning a lot just by skimming over this. Yeah, so basically I want to do something like this, but Depends on the factory that defines it. You may assign a... Oh, cool. Cool. All right. It doesn't look like this is built into Laravel, which is fine. I mean, I guess it's a super specific use case. So for now, we will just basically create a new user every time we create a comment. And I might try and find a nicer way to do that in the future. But for now, I think that this is fine. But let's go back to the comments table. And I'll come down here and make sure that we have something for everything. So we've got the body. We've got a user ID. Now we need to have this commentable. Yeah, do I want that to sit in here though? I guess I do. We'll have the same thing, but then you'll just override it when you're actually using the factory. So let's come in here and we'll say comment, and I'll import that. Check that imported properly, and it did. No, sorry, that's not comment. So this will be commentable. Yeah, I don't know. This is kind of hard to do. Honestly, when you're creating a comment, you're not just going to outright create a comment in a factory. You're going to do it in the context of something else. So I'm actually going to get rid of that. I don't think we want to even include it here. You'll always create a comment in the context of attaching it to something. All right, so I think I can just leave all of that as is. And now let's get out of that. Let's come back to the Cedar and see how we would actually go about doing this. All right, so how about we say here, just as a starting point, has comments. So we can even say has comments like that. And we'll use this random number trick as well. So it could have 0 comments all the way up to probably 2 comments will do. So now let's wipe the database and see if seeding it works. And it did. So let's say art tinker, and we'll say project first. And now let's see if we can grab comments off of that. Okay, it gives us none, but that could be because it's 0. So how about we say skip the first one. And then say first. All right, once again, there's nothing, looking pretty bleak. Maybe this is not working. Yeah, okay, it looks like that's not working. Just like a great way to overview this, we'll be able to say with comments, and then we'll just say get on that. All right, so none of these are actually coming up with any comments. What am I doing wrong here? Has comments. Oh, we probably haven't even defined the relationship. No, we did. We did. We created a trait for it, which is this is commentable trait. And so we got comments, morph many, using commentable. So let's say comment first. All right, looks like no comments have been created. How about we say we create a comment using a factory. So we'll say comment factory. And this will probably give me an error and point me in the direction of what I need to include. We need a commentable type. And then a commentable. It should also ask for a commentable ID. I'm not seeing it here. Anyway, let's try it with commentable type. Maybe create some room. Commentable type. And we'll set the commentable type to, how about a project? Or projects in this example. However, I think by default, the way they do it is like app project, something like this. Oh, hang on. Yeah, I think I'll want to use morph maps here because by default, the type ends up being something like this, like app models comment or something like that. And so that's not what I want. We could at least try and create one. Let's say project first, grab the first project comment, which should give us nothing. So then let's say create, just to check if that method exists, and it does. And it's going to want an IP address. So let's create all of the things that it's going to want. IP is equal to something like that. What else is it going to want? It's going to want, I think that might be it. All right. The problem is when you create something, let's go to comment.php. Yeah, the problem is when you create something with a relationship, unless you're using like a package, creating actually doesn't get called. Man, this is becoming so much more complicated than I wanted it to be. So let's say comment, create, and we'll just do it all manually. Commentable type is equal to, oh, see, but I don't know if it's like app.project or what's done behind the scenes. So I'm gonna have to dig into the docs to find this out. I want to know what it puts into the database. And I can probably do that. So this up here. So all right, I'm getting stuck now. The problem is I can't, it's in this live stream, it's kind of hard for me to dive into the database, or maybe it's not anymore. I think I might have fixed it in an earlier stream. All right, yeah, so we can just create an SQLite database so that we can have a look at this and then see. Now, that's still not going to tell me what it does behind the scenes. I want to know what it sets commentable to. If it's setting it to the function. Oh. Yeah, but this IP address thing is stuffing me up. All right, think about it, Luke. All right, let's just go straight in and change the morph maps. Yeah, I'm just going to do it this way rather than wasting my time trying to figure all that out. Oh, here we go. It actually tells you here. By default, it is app models post. Okay, that's exactly what I thought. But you can basically put in your own morph maps. And so for me, I'd want to change that, for example, to post plural, just because it plays nicer with front end. So now where would I put this? You probably have like a, so it says to put it in a service provider, like an app service provider. So let's go to app service provider. Actually, I'm going to create my own for this. So we'll say art make provider morph maps. Or is there a way I can just fetch it? Yeah, dynamic. I want to be able to like dynamically set my morph maps. So it would probably be better to just sort of overwrite what they've got by default. You know what? No, I don't need to do that because I'm only going to have to do this with a handful of the ones that are polymorphic relationships. All right, so once again, let's copy this and let's create this provider. Morph maps service provider. Now, what do they say? Do they just say provider or they add the word service? Yeah, they do. So morph maps service provider. Let's jump in there. Would I put that in boot or register? You put it in boot, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, boot. Because we're not registering anything. We're just saying, hey, do this at boot time. Relation. What am I extending there? Let me just make sure I'm extending the right class. And yep, it looks like I am. And now, oh gosh, sorry, this ended up being very long-winded, didn't it? Now we need to add in all the things that a comment can belong to so that we end up with the right word sitting inside there when we attach it to something. So let's add projects here. Project. Let's add to do underscore lists here. To do list. And then what else have we got? Projects, to-do lists, to do as well. So let's say to-dos and change that to do. Nice. So now when I create it with the IP address, it should be attached using the correct name for the commentable type. Whew, okay, let's go back into the seeder. Oh, that's my alarm going off telling me I have to head off to work soon. So let's see if I can just quickly get this done. So what was the problem that I ran into before? I think it had to do with the IP address. Okay, it looks like that worked. Art tinker, comment first. No comments were created. So let's say it has comments and hardcode 5 in there, art tinker, and let's run that again. Comment first, and I'm not getting anything. And I am setting the database afterwards. Yeah, I checked that before. So what else could this be? Let's try moving it to the top in case there's something weird going on there. Art tinker. Let's see if factories for polymorphic relationships are different. That could also be the problem. Defining model factories, polymorphic relationships. Yeah, so they've just added in here. Are creating the same way to has many relations. For example, yeah, so has comments. That's exactly what I'm doing. All right, so I don't see any problem with that. Let's check that it looks right in the database. How can I do that? Let's go back into SQL, and I'm going to have to add in this database. So what's it called? It is the well, it is called todo-api.quasarcast.test. Not MySQL, it is an SQLite database, and now we need to go through everything to find it. Quasarcast.com is where I put to do API database.sqlite. So let's save that and connect to that database. Comments, we have commentable type and commentable ID. I don't see anything wrong with that. So it might have something to do with the way I've defined the relationship. So let's go back into project. Is commentable. And I've spelled comments right. Morph many, comment, commentable. I don't see anything wrong with that. Let's say art tinker. Project factory create. See if that works. And it does. So now let's just say with comments, and we'll say 3 and then create. Oh no, it's not with comments, it has comments. Let's try that. I've done something wrong there. Let's say comment factory. Where am I using name wrong? Does it project.php? Sorry, project factory. Where am I doing this wrong? Where's the cost of cough? I'm just creating a project and I'm doing it with comments. Oh, it also creates a user. So let's say a user factory. There it is there. I need to be using a function there because that's going to be deprecated soon. Art tinker. Let's run it again. All right, so it created the project, but as last time, I don't think it actually created those comments for me. So let's say comments here. This time it actually worked. All right, cool. So we know that it can work. Why is it setting commentable type to that though? I thought, okay, I created the service provider, but I didn't register it. So let's say app.php and application service providers. Let's just add another one here. And what did I call it? I called it morph map service provider. So let's exit that art tinker and run that same command again. Create them. And we'll say project find 14. And we want that with its comments. And there we go. That's exactly how I want it to be. So now the question is, why is it working there? But why is it not working in the seeder? So let's go back to the database seeder and check that I did everything right here. So we said factory. Yep, and then the number we want to create. Let's try setting a number there, but I doubt that that's going to change anything. Change it to something like, I don't know, 4. And then let's find that project. Project find, and then get its comments. Okay, so that is working. What else have I done? Then I just call create directly on that. So unless this line of code is interfering with something. So let's exit that, art db wipe, art migrate, and then we'll say art db seed, art tinker, comment first. All right, somehow we seem to have fixed the problem. So now let's grab the first project, and now let's grab its comments, and it's working now. So we can create projects and attach comments to them. Next, and 5 is way too much. Let's go back to a random amount. And then we'll run it again to check that it still works. Between 0 and 3, I think that's a good amount. So let's say art tinker. Hang on. Art db wipe and art migrate with the seeder flag. Okay, now we can tinker and project first and get its comments. So there we go. In this case, we ended up getting 2, but it could be anything between 0 and 3. Nice. Okay, this is working really well. Next, we should literally be able to just copy paste that onto here. So we've got our to-do list, and the to-do list itself also has comments. Maybe we'll just make that between 0 and, I don't know, 4, just to keep things a little bit different. Imagine users using the app in different ways. So let's say art migrate. Actually, we'll basically run that code again where we wipe the database and we seed it again. Art tinker, and now we'll say project first. And we'll get its comments now. That's working. And now let's say to-do list first. Nice. And let's grab its comments. That's working. And let me just try skipping the first one to see if we get a variation in the number of comments. That one's also got 1. That one's also got 1. Okay, this is looking weird. 3. Why have they all only got 1? That's weird. Unless this is a wacky coincidence. So let's grab all of our to-do lists and we'll say with comments. Yeah, we'll just get that, and then I can sort of scroll through and see. They all only seem to have 1 comment. Maybe this random number is only being run once. I bet you that's what's happening. So what I probably need to do is kind of run this inside of a loop so that we end up with a different number every time. Is there a way that, I don't know, let's look up random. Hmm. Yeah, I think that's the problem we're hitting here. In fact, let's test it. Let's run it again. Run our tinker. This time we have 2 comments, and I bet you they all have 2 comments. Yep. They all have 2 comments now. So the problem is, what's happening is it's running, when it runs this file, it generates the random number, but it doesn't generate it every single time we want a new set of to-do lists. So the way we could do that, I don't think I like this, but I'm going to do it for now at least. Is there like a repeat function? Is there a way we can say like do this X amount of times? Let's say helpers. And see if there's a helper that says like do this like 7 times or whatever. Miscellaneous. Abort. There's one that's called like times. Field info logger now. So maybe like PHP run a function X times. I don't want to do a while loop because that would just be so ugly. Gross. While loop. Really? That's the best we've got? I mean, the other thing I could do is use a collection and say each. Oh, that's so gross. This is going to make my code disgusting. The static times method creates a new collection by invoking the given closure a specific number of times. Can I just do that? Yeah, why don't we just do that? So let's pull in collection. And then we'll say times. And now we need to have a callback function. No, you do the number of times and then the callback function. So how about we just say, do this 10 times, function. And now instead of having 10 there, we make it only 1 by default. And now these random numbers should be generated again every single time this is run. So let's say art, you know what, we'll just run that code from before. See if this works. Art tinker. And now let's say project first, comments, and then I'm just going to call count on that. Whoops. Count on that. And now let's say skip the first one. Yeah, sweet. We're getting a variable number now. Nice. Okay, cool. So what happened before, for those of you that didn't kind of see what was going on here, is before I had this, the way we were doing it before is by saying project factory 10 like that. And then what Laravel's doing is it's saving these numbers. So that random number is executed. And for example, it might be a 1. And that means every single time we create a project, it's always going to be a 1 there. And then it'll always, every single one of our projects will have 1 comment. So you lose the randomness. It's because the random function only gets called once. So in order to solve that, instead of doing this 10 times, saying factory 10, and having that number saved, we basically just have it create 1 and we run it every single time. And I don't know if this is less performant. I don't care. It's just a factory. So even if it is less performant, I'm totally happy with that. So cool. We've basically scaffolded out the entire back end and we've created an awesome factory which is going to give us beautiful dummy data. And the cool thing about this is I can now allow people to hit an endpoint that runs this database seeder, and I'll be able to make it run for their IP address. So I might like kind of rebuild this seeder specific to people's IP address. So when they first get started creating the to-do application, they can just see the data, um, basically see the database for themselves and start playing around quickly. So I reckon that is really, really cool. And that is very readable code to me. I could probably do some things better. So I could say like has to-do list and maybe extract this to its own function. Frankly, that would feel like overkill for now. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how I could make this any simpler. I think this looks really beautiful. Yeah. So I think that's it. Let's just quickly check that everything is working by running that again. And now we can say art tinker. Oh, wait, there was one more thing I wanted to do. And that was to say that my to-dos have comments too. So what I'm actually going to have to do is just, instead of saying has to-dos, we'll have to do this. We'll have to say has to-do. And let's call factory on that. And that will be a random number of to-dos. So I guess this is getting pretty deeply nested now. I still think it's readable. Usually I don't like things being nested, but for some reason this still reads nice to me. But anyway, then we can say here the to-do has comments also. In fact, let's just steal that line of code and let's import to-do. And yeah, you might have, I don't know, probably on a to-do itself, you probably have more comments. So now a to-do list is going to be created with some comments and a to-do item is going to be created with some comments. Let's say wipe and migrate again. This is going to be quite a long query, sorry, quite a big seed now because, you know, as we get deeper down the chain and we're creating comments for each of these things, it kind of gets becomes a larger and larger query. But anyway, maybe we could say instead of 1 to 10, 1 to 5. Instead of creating 10 projects, let's just create 3 projects. Yeah, that's going to drastically improve the speed just by doing that. Yeah, way faster. Cool. And now let's say project, first, comments, and there we go. That's the comments for the project. Now let's grab the first project and grab all of its to-do lists. And there we go. It only has 1 in this case. But now we can grab all of the comments that are sitting on the to-do list. We have to actually grab the first one out of there. So let's say 0 to get the first to-do list. And there's the comments on that to-do list. And now a to-do list also has to-dos, so we can pull out all of the to-dos from the to-do list. And now let's grab the first to-do sitting in that to-do list and then grab all of its comments. Nice. This is very, very, very nice. And so now that all the relationships are set up, all the seeding is set up, the last thing we'll do, which I'll do in the next stream, is create the API endpoints for this, which is going to be so simple that it is a joke using Orion. In fact, I'm going to do it right now because it is so ridiculously simple. We've got, let's just use what we've got up here in order to do it. So we've already got the comments endpoint. We've got the projects endpoint. Let's create the to-do endpoint. To-dos, controller. I'm going to grab the comments controller and just duplicate it and change that to to-dos, controller. Anywhere we see the word comment, let's change it to to-do. Just run through and check that. There, we now have a to-do API endpoint. That's how easy it was with this setup, which is freaking awesome. I love Orion. Okay, so that's to-dos, and then we want the to-do list as well. In fact, to-do list should sit here. So since I copy-pasted that down, now we can say to-do lists. And I'll say here, to-do list controller. Jump into there, duplicate it, change it from to-dos to to-do lists. And anywhere we've got to-dos, we change that to to-do lists. And let's change to-do to to-do list, and that's done. We now have an API endpoint for to-do lists as well. The last one we've got is user. That's actually already done. So we've already finished building out the API now. So check this out. We can even take a look at it by CDing into Quasar cast. Where's my project? And then what do we call this? Man, it's called like to-do -API. Yeah, there we go. And let's say art route list. And here's all of our routes. We got all of these comment endpoints built for us so we can index, store. We've even got batch endpoints like batch, store, update, and delete. We can even search our comments. We can show individual comments, update individual comments, and destroy individual comments. We have all that functionality for... by the way, this search endpoint is amazing. It's got a whole lot of functionality. And this is literally all the code I had to do to get that. Stuff like users, and then just building the controller. Super, super, super cool. Yeah, so we've got comments, projects, to-do lists, to-dos, and users. Our API is scaffolded out. I think that this is actually all done, and I'm now ready to start creating a getting started guide. So this is going to be so cool, allowing users to basically very easily start using my getting started guide because the API has already been built for them. So thank you so much for watching, guys and girls. Really enjoyed doing this one. I'm so glad that this is done so I can finally start my Getting Started series and share it with all of you. Quasar is awesome. Check out quasarcast.com/register if you like this kind of thing, and I'll see you in a later stream. All right, bye for now.